So another day, more Alabama football news that we have got to discuss, and today we've got some big topics we need to dive into. First and foremost, we need to talk about the newest name from Alabama that entered their name into the transfer portal, and that's none other than former top 200 prospect in all of high school football, inside linebacker Kendrick Blackshire, and what it means for the Tide. Secondly, we need to turn our attention to the topic taking social media by storm, and that's that Alabama defensive coordinator Kevin Steele is set to retire. And though I don't find that to be inherently surprising, it did create an instant and obvious question, being what comes next for Alabama at the defensive coordinator position, something we of course have to discuss. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill, I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you surprised that Kendrick Blackshire entered his name into the transfer portal? And then secondly, who would you like to see take over at defensive coordinator for the Tide? I can't wait to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below, as those interactions seem small, they are massive to content creators such as myself. But having said all that, let's dive right into this. And of course, we're going to start with the transfer portal news, where it should catch nobody by surprise that Alabama has lost yet another player to the transfer portal. Look, we talked about this the other day, that Alabama was over the scholarship limit and that decisions were going to be made. And this is a continuation of that decision process. This time, it's former four-star inside linebacker Kendrick Blackshire, who, as I alluded to in the intro, is a phenomenally gifted prospect. Coming out of high school in the class of 2021, Kendrick Blackshire was a top 175 prospect in the nation per 24/7 Sports, and he played at one of the best high schools, not only in the state of Texas, but in all of high school football in the nation, and that's Duncanville, right down the street from where I currently sit. Kendrick Blackshire is a very gifted prospect, a guy that I think a lot of Alabama fans were surprised didn't get more play this season, but I'm not surprised he enters his name into the transfer portal, and the reason is quite simple. Whenever Deontay Lawson chose to forego the NFL draft, it seemed that the writing was on the wall, that there would be more movement from this inside linebacker room for the Tide. Because with Deontay Lawson coming back, the duo that I think everybody believes will take over is Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson. Personally, it was the duo that I found to be the most dynamic for Alabama at that linebacker position all season long. But that minimizes opportunities for everybody else. And Kendrick Blackshire is a guy that knows he's talented, that trusts in his ability and wants to bet on himself. And quite frankly, I don't blame him for that. Yes, he may have had more opportunities, but at the same time, we need to understand the day and age in college football we live in. And this is a guy that can go somewhere and be an instant impact player. And I'm very excited to see where he goes. I'll be rooting for him wherever he ends up. But like the other Alabama players, I don't expect him to be in the transfer portal for very long, and the reason's quite simple. Because we talk about this all the time. In the transfer portal, there are certain qualities that you can get that you just can't get with a guy coming out of high school. One of those qualities being, they successfully made the transition from high school football to college football. Another such quality is that they've been in a college strength and conditioning program. But for guys that come from programs like Alabama, there's another quality. And that's that you've been in a winning environment, a positive culture, and that's a compelling factor for these institutions and coaches. So aside from the talent that Kendrick Blackshire has, I don't expect him to be in the transfer portal for very long because he's been coached by the Alabama defensive staff and he's been around that type of winning environment, winning culture. It's a reason why when players from Georgia, when players from Alabama hit the transfer portal, they get taken real quick. I expect Kendrick Blackshire to be a continuation of that, and we will be rooting for him wherever he goes. But now, we need to turn our attention to the second topic at hand, the topic that's taking social media by storm. And that's that Alabama defensive coordinator Kevin Steele is set to retire, creating an instant and obvious question, being what comes next. Well, there are already reports surfacing that DJ Durkin is a name to watch. And though, yes, DJ Durkin has coaching experience as a head coach, as a defensive coordinator, and even defensive coordinator experience in the SEC, having coached at both Ole Miss and Texas A&M, personally, I think there's a better name out there, and I don't think you have to go very far to find him. He's already on staff, and that's Travaris Robinson. Travaris Robinson was an ace hire for Nick Saban, in my opinion, and he's shown that, not only in his coaching ability, not only with how the secondary has played, but also his ability to recruit, where he has been a master recruiter for the Crimson Tide. When we look, Alabama's secondary was really good this year, and there are 2 defensive backs going in the first round for the Crimson Tide, in Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold. And yes, I know, Nick Saban has his hand in the defensive backfield, but so too did T-Rob. T-Rob is a guy that had an increased role as the season went on, and they allowed him to be more influential in the defense. And part of the reason why I feel like T-Rob had a more influential role as the season went on for Alabama is not only that he's a fantastic coach and a phenomenal defensive mind, but because he's been an SEC defensive coordinator in the past. We talked about the experience DJ Durkin brings to the table, but lest we forget, Travaris Robinson was a defensive coordinator in the SEC at South Carolina for multiple years. So he's a phenomenal coach and he has the experience. I think he is the best man for the job. He already knows the players, he already knows the playbook, he already is familiar with the staff, and he's already on roster. His contract is set to expire in February, and I would do anything I could to keep him on staff. And yes, he may not have the experience of DJ Durkin, but with DJ Durkin comes some baggage that we're not going to dive into today, but if you know, you know. And though that's in the past, and I completely believe in people having multiple chances to be able to turn things around, I just think there's a better option already on staff that you could avoid that baggage. And I think that T-Rob is a perfect fit for the job. He's a young guy, 42 years old, which so is DJ Durkin, though he's not 42. He's a younger guy. T-Rob can relate, and he's already in the building. I think it would be a home run hire. And I wasn't inherently surprised to see Kevin Steele retiring. Remember, for the Alabama fans in the know, it was kind of discussed that this was going to be a temporary solution at defensive coordinator. And personally, I think that one of the reasons why it was temporary is you have Kevin Steele there, you have T-Rob with Kevin Steele, and T-Rob works with Kevin Steele and Nick Saban to prep himself as the next defensive coordinator for Alabama. Remember, Kevin Steele was there in the past, and something very similar happened, which is a big reason why I hope it's T-Rob. But one of the reasons why we expected Kevin Steele to be a short-term hire is because he was close to being able to receive his retirement benefits from the state, and now he's crossed that threshold. So for Kevin Steele, a huge thank you from the Crimson Tide fan base, because Alabama's defense this year fixed a lot of the wrongs that we had previously complained so vehemently about, and it was good to see Alabama return to the shades of joyless murder ball. Hopefully that's something that's able to continue. But if you're asking me who I want Alabama to hire at the defensive coordinator position, it's not a question. I think the right guy is already on staff. I think he did a phenomenal job in his capacity as a defensive backs coach this year. I think he did a phenomenal job on the recruiting trail, where Alabama not only signed a really impressive defensive backs haul, this was a guy that was chipping away at Ryan Williams the entire time and continues to do so. I would keep T-Rob at all costs, and I think he is a perfect name for the defensive coordinator position at Alabama. He may not have the experience of Durkin, but I think he's a better fit for the Tide. But that's just my opinion, and I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down in the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.